I'm going to tell two little stories right now. The first one's going to be how I got into Slayer. Probably sounds kind of basic, right? When I was growing up, my mom was really strict. I wasn't allowed to wear certain clothes or look a certain way. When we ended up moving to California, everybody was wearing like OP shirts and shorts, wearing Vans, tennis shoes. I was always clean cut. I was very geeky. I was very smart. And I always dressed, I wouldn't say nice, like I'm not wearing suits and ties, but I always wore like some type of nice pants and a nice shirt with nothing on it, like no writing or anything. I listened to music, but not like how we do now. It was more like I was just busy living my life as a kid, you know, running around with my friends, playing baseball and doing sports and just whatever was on the radio that the older people had on, or my parents or whatever. That's just the music I listened to. It wasn't like when I went home, I'd turn on a specific station, or when I was out and about, I didn't like listen to music on purpose. Like I wouldn't go just, you know, if I'm going out doing something, I didn't play music. It was just that way. I know a lot of music from when I was a little kid, when my babysitters would have the radio on, or when we were at the rec center because my mom had to work and we had nowhere to go, we'd be there and just whatever they had on. So I knew a lot of different types of music. But for my whole life, pretty much all the way to age 12 or 13, somewhere around there, I would just listen to whatever. It was like, you know, Duran Duran or whatever was popular on the radio, pretty much just pop music. We couldn't afford anything like a Walkman. Even if I had one, you know, what was I going to play on it? I didn't have like music at home. I've always had a girlfriend, like almost my whole life. I've always had some type of a girl or girlfriend with me all the time. So somewhere around the age of 12 or 13-ish in junior high, John Muir Junior High in Burbank, I had this one particular girlfriend, and I'm not going to say her name, and she listened to the same type of music I did. There was a carnival every year in Burbank, not the McCambridge one. There was one up in the hill, like at the top of Lamer, like in the hill, somewhere up there, like St. Francis Xavier. I think that's the church it was at. There was a church up there somewhere. Sorry, I haven't been there a long time, and I can't remember a lot of the stuff that's there. So they were having their yearly carnival. Of course, we're going to go up there, and I saw that girl with another guy. I got so angry, like the rage that was inside of me, like you just want to actually physically kill somebody. I had that. I was just like, over a girl, that's stupid, but that's how I was. I used to have a really bad temper. But I was so angry. I said, you know what? I decided that the rock and roll girls, they're hot and they wear completely different clothes. They all look a different way. They all have like long hair. They're not like butch or anything, but they had like, you know, the fringe boots, the fringe jackets, you know, leather. They were like really good looking girls. Not that Socias aren't, but they were different, not just in looks, they were different. But I didn't like rock and roll. I was really determined to force myself to like rock and roll. So back in the day on the radio stations, there were two major stations in the LA area. There was KLOS and there was KMET. KMET was supposed to be like the metal station. I really don't remember what type of music they played. That's a long time ago when I was like, you know, 12 years old. I don't know. But I did remember KLOS on Sunday nights, they would play full albums, front and back. They'd play the whole front of a whole album. Then there'd be a set of commercials and they'd flip the record over and play the whole backside. And it was all rock and roll type of music. I don't quite remember the exact bands that either of them stations would play. So what I would do is I would go to sleep with headphones on and turn one of those stations on and just let it run all night while I'm sleeping and kind of like force it into my subconscious. Once I started liking the music, I had determined, hey, I need to go get some of this music. I need to buy some. And I'd been working since I was 10 years old, so I had my own money. So I rode my bike to the Golden Mall. It was called the Golden Mall at that time in Burbank. And I went to Michelle's Music Shop. It might have been called Michelle's Records. I don't remember. It was in Burbank in the Golden Mall. It was a record store. I walked in there and I was looking at the 12-inch albums, the records, the covers. Just because they're bigger, I was going to buy a cassette. But I had determined in my head, I'm going to buy the album that has the coolest looking cover, artwork. I don't even know what I'm looking at, but whatever that is, I'm going to buy the cassette version of that album. So I'm looking around the record store and I'm like, that's the one. It was up like on a shelf because they had like the records on display, the covers. I'm like, that's the one right there. And I got the cassette and I went and bought it at the counter. And the guy was like, are you sure you really want this? I'm like, heck yeah, man, this looks cool. It was Slayer, Show No Mercy. Now to go from like Duran Duran straight into that type of music is very drastic. Now looking back from here, because we're in the future now, it probably doesn't seem that way, but at that particular moment in time, Slayer was like, it. You know, most people were like listening to like, you know, Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin. I didn't like any of that stuff. Richie listened to all that. The only reason I even know any of that stuff is because of him. I don't like it. I never did. Slayer back then in like, you know, early 80s, that's unheard of. That's like, you hear that, you're like, what happened? So one time I'm just hanging out, I'm listening to this stuff, and then Richie comes over, you know, to come get me because we ride bikes all over the place. And I said, dude, you got to check this out, man. This is by far, in my entire life, the best music I have ever heard in my entire life. And I put that on. He looked at me and he was like, what happened to you? I mean, he was freaked out. He was really freaked out. He's like, dude, what happened to you? Like, it's funny looking back on it now, but it kind of wasn't funny at the time because it was that drastic. It's like, here I am, this clean-cut, kind of preppy guy, although I was kind of a jock, and all of a sudden it's like I became Satan's servant. He really did. He really was freaked out. He's like, what happened to you? It was really bad. There's songs on this album called The Antichrist where he's like, I am the Antichrist. And then there's Evil Has No Boundaries. I mean, this is really bad stuff to listen to. But it was my favorite music I've ever heard. And from that day forward, until I became a Christian, which was like way later, that was my favorite band of all time. I always bought everything when it came out, even the live ones. And I don't even like live music to listen to. I bought everything. I used to go to these like really dark parties, like bad, like these dark drug parties and stuff. And I would freak people out even there. You know, people are doing coke and crank and all kinds of bad stuff. And here I am, and I would walk around, somebody would say something, they don't listen to Slayer. Nobody listened to them yet. This is like, you know, they're not on the radio. Back then, they didn't play this type of stuff anywhere on any radio. I don't even think college stations played this stuff. College stations usually have different blocks of different genres of music. When it would be like really late at night and dark, I would like, you know, get the flashlight, put it on my face and just look at people and just start quoting some of the lyrics, and people would be like, we need to get out of here. I mean, it would freak people out. It was some bad stuff. You know, you guys are going to look at this now since we're in the future. Oh, that's not that bad. That's because things are worse now than they were then. As I became an older teenager, I got into like Metallica and Megadeth and stuff. Metallica was one of my favorite bands for a long time too. But you'll see in a lot of the pictures we have, I'm either wearing, you know, a Megadeth shirt, a Metallica shirt, or a Slayer shirt. Like all the time, that's all I would wear. Even in some of the honeymoon pictures that we have from Atlanta, I even wore those then. Because all we did in Atlanta, we got married in court, and then we just went to like a hotel downtown and just kind of hung out, you know, had a couple days off work and just kind of relaxed a little bit together. So we were just wearing, you know, regular clothes. We didn't have like a big wedding or anything. We were just hanging out in Atlanta because we had moved there in the 90s. And after that, you know, as a young teenager all the way, you know, into my 20s and stuff, I would listen to the most hardcore music for that era, and people would be like, what the heck are you listening to? Like, nobody really listened to that. There was none of this stuff on the radio. You know, a lot of people you talk to, they don't listen to that. They would listen to more mainstream metal, you know, like Motley Crue or Rat. And there's nothing wrong with that. That was like, you know, in the 80s, we were in LA at the time. That's what everybody listened to. That was like the more, you know, mainstream type of metal. You know, and I'm listening to like this really hardcore stuff. And people are like, people didn't do that then. It was unheard of. And then after we moved to Atlanta, it was really unheard of there. Like I didn't know anybody that listened to my type of music. Not one person. Even though I've been a metalhead my whole life, I went onto the Christian metal side of things. And I still listen to some secular music, and I still play secular music on the drums. But I'm very picky about what I play. I'm not going to play anything that is talking against Jesus or talking pro-Satan. I don't listen to songs that boys are singing about girls or girls are singing about boys. I don't do that. There's a couple small ones mixed in here and there because they're not so blatant. When it comes to the girl-boy thing, they're not so blatant as like pop music is. It's more obscure that way. And a lot of people are like, Christian metal, that doesn't make any sense. That's not Christian. I'm like, hey, if it glorifies Jesus in their words, it doesn't matter what the genre is. So I would like to encourage everybody who's made it this far in this video, give your life to Jesus. It's the best decision you'll ever make. It's not an easy road. It's actually a harder road than a regular non-Christian life. It's a hard life, but it's the best decision you're ever going to make because this life is this big. You're probably thinking, I'm going to live till 80 years old. Wow, what's that in the grand scheme of eternity after you die? You got to think about where do you go after you die. You really have to ponder that question and look into it and do some research. But I'd like to encourage you, Jesus died and rose from the dead for you. When he rose from the dead, he had you in mind. So don't throw that away. Really look into that and research that and give your life to Jesus while you still have breath. Because once you don't have no more breath, it's too late. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.
Anyway, this is my new Megadeth shirt. It glows in the dark. The back side glows in the dark.